In the year 2000, when my now 24-year-old daughter was a baby, we went to Italy for a few weeks. One day we ended up in Gubbio, a perfectly preserved, rather remote medieval hill town in Umbria. That afternoon, we watched the 500-year-old crossbow contest held in one of the most magnificent squares in all of Europe, complete with flag wavers, trumpeters, and costume competitors. We loved it. And after, we walked through the town's narrow streets, packed with families serving wonderful Italian food late into the night. At that point, I had not even started writing my novels, but I knew in my heart that one day I had to include this spectacle in a book. When I began my first book, Old City Hall, I gave one of my main characters, Daniel Kennicott, a backstory that I knew would lead him back to Gubbio. Here's the book, and right out at the beginning, page 9, this is what I wrote as his backstory. It had been 3.5 years since Daniel Kennicott had joined the police force, turning his back on what had been a promising career as a young lawyer in one of the city's top firms. The reason? His older brother Michael had been murdered 12 months before. When the investigation seemed to be going nowhere, he traded in his legal robes for a badge. For years, and 6 novels, my readers have been writing me letters such as these two. I've loved your books. I see you have another release, and I hope you keep them coming. I hopefully assume there's a plan to follow up on the murder of Daniel's brother and his parents' car accident at some point. Anyway, good job. Here's another one. Firstly, we love your books and have read every one. We sit on pins and needles awaiting the next one. Secondly, don't ever stop writing. We love Ari. Not too happy about Jennifer being murdered. We hope soon we will find out what happened to Kennicott's brother. And for years, in the books, Daniel kept putting off dealing with his brother Michael's murder. Why? Well, I'm to blame. How could Daniel figure out what happened to his brother until I did? I'll confess, I knew it was a powerful story, but I had no idea what the answer was. That's why it took me 3 years to write my new novel. This is it, What We Buried. Along the way, I discovered the tragic key to the mystery. In June 1944, when Germany occupied Italy, and one afternoon Italian partisans killed a Nazi officer and injured another. As revenge, Hitler demanded the murder of 40 innocent civilians. This horror became the spine of the novel. As I was completing the manuscript, I knew I had to go back to Gubbio. Here are some of the photos I took of the Gubbio Crossbow Museum, the current crossbow champion, the compelling shrine to the 40 martyrs, and most remarkable of all, a 94-year-old priest who, at horrible risk to himself, because the Nazis didn't just murder priests who assisted Jews, they tortured them to death, hid a Jewish family from Florence in his monastery. There's more to this novel. What about the suspicious car accident that killed Kennicott's parents 2 years before his brother's murder? At last, Detective Ari Green heads back up north to investigate. And there's a third story. I'm not the child of Holocaust survivors, but as readers of my novels will know, my main character Ari Green is. So are many of my closest friends. For years, I've talked to their survivor parents and collected their stories. To research this novel, I read every book I could get my hands on about Italy during and after the war. Like many Holocaust survivors, Ari's father Yitzhak, a favorite of many of my readers, has never told anyone about what he did after the war. At last, in this novel, he sits down with his beloved granddaughter, the young journalist Allison Green, and she videotapes his story. Pulling these 3 disparate stories together, bringing back characters from earlier books, and creating a host of new ones made this the most difficult book to write of any of my novels, and the most rewarding. I'm glad I took up the challenge. I hope you enjoy my new book, What We Buried.